Hello.
Present.
Representative Batista. Representative Bennett. Here. Representative Caldwell.
Here.
Representative Casimiro.
Here.
Representative Corvese.
Here.
Representative Felix.
Here.
Representative Lombardi.
Present.
Representative Norrie.
Here.
Representative Place.
Present.
Representative Roberts. And Representative Bella Wilkinson. We have a quorum, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the House Committee on Judiciary. It's Wednesday, May 2nd, 2021. We're in the lounge of the House of Representatives. We've got 5 bills tonight. 3 we're going to vote on, and 2 we will take testimony. And for those of you who want to count maybe how long we think we're going to be here, the first bill has 7 callers registered, and the second has 9 callers registered. So, without further ado, I'll deal with those matters that are scheduled here for vote, or as we say, for consideration. And the first bill is House Bill 5977. It's sponsored by Floor Manager Edwards. It's an act related to highways, freeways. It eliminates the provision a person who solicits a ride in a motor vehicle or backs up a motor vehicle on a highway is guilty of a misdemeanor. It adds a $100 fine for advertising a motor vehicle for sale on a state highway to the schedule of violations. This is a bill that came out of the Judiciary, but specifically from the Rhode Island Traffic Tribunal, and apparently in ticket-related matters that go to trial, or at least some form of a hearing, that the concern about vehicles backing up on the highway, they want an exemption to like cement trucks and things like that that are doing construction work. There's no other way for them to turn those vehicles around. So, in any event, if there is no testimony or concerns about it, do I hear a motion for passage?
Second. Who put in so moved? Bennett. Oh, sorry.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Chairman Craven.
Aye.
First Vice Chair McEntee.
Aye.
Second Vice Chair Knight.
Yes.
Representative Agello.
Yes.
Representative Batista.
Yes.
Representative Bennett. Yes. Representative Caldwell.
Aye.
Representative Casimiro.
Yes.
Representative Corvese.
Yes.
Representative Felix.
Yes.
Representative Lombardi. Representative Lombardi.
You're muted, John.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Representative Norrie.
Yes.
Representative Place.
Yes.
Representative Roberts. And Representative Bella Wilkinson. The ayes have it.
Okay, so that bill passes. Next matter is a Senate bill, Bill number 56, sponsored by Senator De Palma. The House version was House Bill 5394. It passed out of committee. It was Representative Quattrovan's bill. It passed out of committee and onto the floor and passed 72-0 on the floor. It is an act related to state affairs and government, preservation of families with Disabled Parents Act. It precludes a parent's disability from serving as the sole basis for the state to institute an investigation of the disabled parent's family.
It's a good bill. I move passage.
It's been
Second.
moved. Has it been seconded?
Yes.
Moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Chairman Craven.
Aye.
First Vice Chair McEntee.
Aye.
Second Vice Chair Knight.
Yes.
Representative Agello.
Aye.
Representative Batista. Representative Bennett. Representative Caldwell.
Aye.
Representative Casimiro.
Aye.
Representative Corvese.
Yes.
Representative Felix.
Yes.
Representative Lombardi.
Yes.
Representative Norrie.
Yes.
Representative Place.
Yes.
Representative Roberts. And Representative Bella Wilkinson. The ayes have it.
Okay, matter passes. The last bill on our consideration calendar is House Bill 5387. It's sponsored by Chairwoman Casamaro. It's an act related to domestic relations, marriage licenses. It requires a person to be at least 18 years old to obtain a marriage license. I understand we have a Sub-A. John, would you address the committee on the substance of the Sub-A?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Sub-A language is added on page 2. It's kind of a cleanup issue. There's another statute, 14-1-5, relative to jurisdiction in the family court. And one of the specific items under there, number 4, line 29, was it related to child marriages as prescribed by 15-211. So they just deleted that section based on the changes made in this statute, 15-214. That's all.
So it deleted language that would contradict what hopefully will pass this afternoon.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, do I hear a motion to indefinitely postpone House Bill 5387 and pass the 5387 Sub-A version?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded by Representative Casamaro and McEntee. Madam Clerk?
Chairman Craven.
Aye.
First Vice Chair McEntee.
Aye.
Second Vice Chair Knight.
Yes.
Representative Agello.
Yes.
Representative Batista. Yes. Representative Bennett. Yes. Representative Caldwell.
Aye.
Representative Casimiro.
Yes.
Representative Corvese.
Yes.
Representative Felix.
Yes.
Representative Lombardi.
Yes.
Representative Norrie.
Yes.
Representative Place.
Yes.
Representative Roberts. And Representative Bella Wilkinson. The ayes have it.
Okay, congratulations, Chairwoman.
Yes, congratulations.
It's a good
Great
bill.
bill.
You can get back to all those people that emailed me, wanted to know about it, yeah. Okay, the next set of bills, 2 of them in number, are bills that we are scheduled for hearing and/or consideration. It's our custom and practice, and there's good reasons for it, to hold all bills for further study. So do I hear a motion to hold
So
both of these
moved.
bills for further study?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Dr. Corvese. Madam Clerk? Oh, is it Representative Knight? I'm
And
sorry.
me.
Knight,
And you,
yeah.
okay.
Chairman Craven.
Aye.
First Vice Chair McEntee.
Aye.
Second Vice Chair Knight.
Yes.
Representative Agello.
Aye.
Representative Batista. Representative Bennett. Representative Caldwell.
Aye.
Representative Casimiro.
Aye.
Representative Corvese.
Aye.
Representative Felix.
Aye.
Representative Lombardi.
Aye.
Representative Norrie.
Yes.
Representative Place.
Nay.
Representative Roberts and Representative Bella Wilkinson. The ayes have it.
Do it.
Okay. So the first bill on tonight's calendar for hearing is House Bill 6269. It's sponsored by Chairman Corvese. It's an act related to criminal offenses, disorderly conduct, unlawful interference with traffic. It criminalizes as disorderly conduct the act of interfering with the lawful movement of traffic on any highway. For those of you who are not lawyers, or if you are not criminal lawyers, I know Second Vice Chair Knight is very intimate with the disorderly conduct statute. It is a, would you say it's some form of a pour-over criminal statute where
Certainly catches a lot.
it
yeah.
catches a lot? And in this instance, this is going to be an amendment. We've heard about this bill or this issue before with blocking traffic, and that's what Representative Corvese attempts to address by this bill. So the floor is yours, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is not safe to protest on the highway, Part 2. After consideration of the testimony and the comments and suggestions of colleagues, and taking into particular account Representative Lombardi's comments into consideration regarding the disorderly conduct statute, I decided to work off that to modify my former bill, which made it a felony to protest on the highway. So first, by working off the disorderly conduct statute, violations now become misdemeanors, not felonies. Second, I preserved the exemption for labor which already existed in the law. Third, although not a felony, it sends what I believe is an appropriate and balanced message that such activity is not so societally prudent and is a safety hazard to the public. Now, you'll hear the usual drivel, and I characterize it as drivel, that this is somehow racist. Simply put, this applies to everyone across the board, no matter color, creed, race, or sexual identity orientation. You will hear how this bill is unconstitutional. The Constitution is not a suicide pact. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on an issue or which side of an issue you're on, there have been constitutional limits placed on many of our freedoms. Just because you may, and I say may, have a right to do something, doesn't mean you should, or that it's a good idea to do it. For public safety reasons, I urge this committee to support this legislation and to pass it.
Are there any questions of the sponsor by members? Yes, Jose.
Not necessarily a question, but is this an opportunity for us to offer comment as well?
Yes.
Doctor, I appreciate your comments, and I acknowledge the fact that you have taken into account the concerns of certain folks and, at a minimum, not making this a felony. So I acknowledge that, and I appreciate that. I do want to push back on a couple of your comments. I take issue with the word dribble. I don't think that it's dribble that folks are concerned that this can have a disproportionate impact on people in my community. I believe that's a legitimate concern. It's a real concern. I can appreciate your frustration, but it's certainly not dribble. And my feelings on this are complicated. And so when I struggled to speak on it, when I struggled to think about what it is that I want to say, I thought about historical context, and I think it's an appropriate opportunity to reference one of my favorite pieces of literature, and that is Martin Luther King's A Letter from a Birmingham Jail, which I'm sure you're familiar. And if you'll indulge me to read 4 or 5 sentences of that letter, I think he says much better than I could ever say why it is that I adamantly oppose this bill, and I ask my colleagues to do the same. Just for context, A Letter from a Birmingham Jail is written in April 1963 when Martin Luther King is sitting in a Birmingham jail, and he's criticized by the clergy. And so he responds to them and talking about why it is that he does what he does. And the particular provision that I want to read says, quote, "You deplore demonstrations taking place in Birmingham, but your statement, I am sorry to say, fails to express a similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstration. I am sure that none of you would want to rest content with the superficial kind of social analysis that deals merely with the effects and does not grapple with the underlying causes. It is unfortunate that demonstrations are taking place in Birmingham, but it is even more unfortunate that the city's power structure has left the Negro community with no alternative." Those words are written some 50, almost 60 years ago. And he's talking about Birmingham, but we can easily substitute that provision for protests on the highway. On a surface level, I might agree with you that folks protesting on the highway is unsafe and we don't want people to do it, but I could not in good conscience criminalize that conduct without thinking about the underlying causes. And to make it more specific, not that I want to draw attention to myself, but think about my life and my career and what happened to me recently, where it's a very long conversation, we can have the debate at some other time, but I simply try to draw attention to police misconduct. And the city of Providence would rather jump through hoops and bend over backwards and fire me and tarnish my name rather than merely confront, look at, and acknowledge the problem. And I worry that despite your good efforts and intents, that this bill would do the same. And so I cannot support it, and I ask my colleagues to at least consider the historical context of why a bill like this might be so problematic.
Doctor.
Representative Batista, I can respect the particular position you're in. I understand what you're talking about with regard to the underlying causes, the underlying reasons for the protest. As far as the use of the word drivel, I have a feeling that over the years that you and I will be serving together, we will disagree on the use of words within the English language. I specifically picked drivel because the definition of that is nonsense. Because my bill, as far as I'm concerned, with my intention, has no bias to it. Whoever performs the action, no matter who they are, would be in violation. So I'm not looking to single out one particular group or another. And that's why I called it that, because I get vilified on the internet on a regular basis, and that's fine. But I do take issue with when my pieces of legislation are called racist. The intention is not to be racist. I don't care who it is. Arrest them. Regarding the underlying causes, the reasons for the protests, I don't dispute the altruistic nature of the cause of the protest. My concern is somewhere along the way there could be harm to the public good, public safety. That's my intention here and nothing more. So we may disagree, you and I, respectfully, on the terminology that I may use to describe the legislation. But the legislation has no racial bent or smell to it, as far as I'm concerned. It has no intention for that. I don't care who you are. I don't care if I'm not going to make any examples. I can only say, I don't care who you are, what you represent, on what end of the spectrum. If you're on the highway, if you're in a public street, and you're cutting off traffic, which could include somewhere down the road safety vehicles, ambulances, people in crisis that are taking their family members to a hospital because they don't have the presence of mind to call, EMTs or what have you. There's a safety factor there. That's it. And I think, again, that it's a measured and a balanced response. I listened to the testimony regarding the felony. Apparently, people felt that was heavy-handed. So be it. This is a misdemeanor. All I did was just tweak the already disorderly conduct statute in the law. So I respect where you're coming from. I'm sure you and I are going to have additional conversations, both publicly and privately. Thank you.
Representative Caldwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Batista, for bringing in one of also my favorite pieces of literature, King's Letter from Birmingham Jail. When I'm feeling particularly down about this job, I sometimes go back and read it, where King also answers the question about why he is in Birmingham, and he is in there because injustice is there, and that is where we all belong. I have a question, although first a brief comment. Doc, I was very happy to hear you say that you didn't think the Constitution was a suicide pact, and I hope, of course, you consider that when we think about all parts of the Constitution and all of its amendments.
I do, every single part of it.
Great. I look forward to talking about that more. But I have a question that might be for the chairman or Representative Knight. Jason Rebnight, you talked about how the disorderly conduct statute really is, a catch-all for a lot of different things. That was my understanding. Is it police officers cannot already charge people doing this with disorderly conduct? That would have been my understanding.
I'm sorry, the last part was a little muffled. Say that again?
That police officers could already charge people blocking the highway with disorderly conduct if they were endangering the public good.
Sure. It is up, if you scroll up, 1145-1 subsection 4, alone or with others obstructs a highway, street, sidewalk, railway, etc., to which public or substantial group of public has access. So section 4 in there, I think, already makes it a crime to obstruct a highway, and you could be charged with disorderly.
Thank you.
While I'm here, I would just throw this out there. In the proposed new language, just technically, it says on the second line, the second blue language about halfway through, any highway causing the interruption distraction or delay of a person traveling on the highway, I would just, if this bill goes, I would think we need to talk about distraction and delay. There's a number of things that are positioned on the side of a highway that could distract, billboards that, or those homemade signs that say, "Welcome home, Sergeant Smith," that kind of thing. And that might, that word might loop people in, and delay. Again, you may have legitimate protest off the side of a highway where people unfurl a banner or something that, whatever the political issue is. And that, to me, seems legitimate First Amendment activity if it doesn't create a safety risk, and a delay is not necessarily a safety risk. So just thinking out loud there.
Okay. Any other questions by members? Yes. Vice Chair McAtee.
Doc, I want to agree with you if I could, but I mean, this seems to be targeted towards protesters. And I have to agree with Representative Caldwell and Representative Knight that number 4 already handles those people who are just obstructing. But the fact of the matter is, as Representative Baptista says, there are times in our country, and we embrace these moments where people peacefully protest, and it has to be in the streets. Sometimes that's the way it is. Sometimes that's the only way people get heard for injustice. And so you're suggesting all of these, like, let's say the Black Lives Matter movement we had back in, when was that, last May? I mean, there were maybe 10,000 people here. You think, I was one of them. So we should all be arrested for marching and standing for justice for what happened with George Floyd? I mean, that makes no sense to me.
I think you're obfuscating the intent of the bill.
Well, what is the intent?
The
I
intent
don't
of the
get
bill,
it.
the intent of the bill is exactly what we saw on 95 not too long ago with regard to protesters on 95.
But you already have that in number 4.
But this will give additional teeth, if you will, to the bill for those individuals who are protesting on the highway.
Well, I think it goes further than that, and for that reason, I have a problem with
Then
it.
you don't have to support it.
I know, I just wish we could think, if you could be clearer as to what happened on 95 and just hit that, but I think you already have that.
Chairman?
Yes.
So my understanding of disorderly conduct, and again, from the last time we discussed this, everyone kept saying, oh, you can already do this under disorderly conduct, you can already do this. But those cases, most of them, if not all, have been dismissed because of the last section of disorderly conduct, if I'm not incorrectly stating. Section D, in no event shall subdivisions A, 2 through 5, so talking about the picketing, of this section be construed to prevent lawful picketing or lawful demonstrations, including but not limited to or relating to a labor dispute. So I understand that the demonstration is a lawful demonstration, but when it spills into the street to obstruct traffic, I think that that's the intent of the bill, is to say that, because again, disorderly conduct, D, in no event shall this subdivision A, 2 through 5 of this section prevent the lawful picketing. So I think the intent is to not stop the lawful picketing, but when the lawful picketing becomes unlawful by obstructing traffic and creating a hazard to both moving vehicles as well as the people who are picketing and now obstructing the street, I think it's to correct this issue.
Mr. Chairman, I thought that my opening remarks had, when I referred to Representative Lombardi, when he did such a magnificent job, John, when you successfully cross-examined me on the first bill, that's what gave me the idea to carve that out and put this in, okay? Because you said they're arrested for disorderly conduct, but because of the loophole, if you will, the language of the disorderly conduct statute, it'd be thrown out. This gives teeth to that. That's what I'm trying to achieve here. And again, I know, with all due respect to Representative McAtee, who I respect, and Representative Batista, who I respect, I'm not trying to single out anyone. I don't care who you are. It's the concept of being on a highway and protesting. I don't care who you are. It's just not safe. And I hope Representative Batista respects that.
Well, I certainly understand that. And, I want to bring up a sincere example. And again, the gun night bill was really instructive for me because so many of the folks who called were so afraid. And they were making leaps of logic and saying, if they stop us from getting guns, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. And basically it all ends in genocide. And look at how alarmed folks were. And I get it. And I get it. I suspect if we were to pass some really restrictive gun laws and the gun advocates were to try to block the highway, your position would be the same, that they should not.
You are correct. I don't care who's on the highway. And there's other ways of making your point. Again, just because you have a right to do something doesn't mean you should or that it's a good idea to do it.
And the only thing I would say to that is, I knew your position would be the same because you're an honorable and decent man. But but the point that I'm trying to make, and this is really the underlying issue, we can't ignore the fact that the most recent protests, plural, that have taken place have been because people have watched murder take place on tape. And as Martin Luther King says in his letter, we tried this and it didn't work. We tried that and it didn't work. We tried this and it didn't work. So now that we are, in his case, protesting in Birmingham, in our case, blocking the highway, now that we're doing this and we have your attention, that's the point. They're doing it to get people's attention. And the sad reality is, and this is the point I'm making, I don't mean to pick on folks, but the gun advocates seem to be so alarmed about something that is so theoretically far away, whereas we are watching live murder take place, and we have to hope that the police officer gets convicted. We watched that on camera, and that's just one example. And so, are there antagonizers and people who take advantage of the situation to make it worse? Probably, just like there are in all situations. But the underlying issue here is literally life or death. And you have folks advocating here, trying to pass legislation, trying to do this, that, or the other, and it's only when they don't see results that they have to resort to something like that to try to get our attention. And so it would be professionally irresponsible of us as legislators to criminalize that conduct.
Doc.
Hopefully these will be my last comments on this, unless someone has a question, I'll be happy to answer. But I understand your concept of the slippery slope. I've experienced here, but that's basically what you said. The protesters are concerned that this could lead to something else. The gun people, Second Amendment people, are concerned that it could lead to something else. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. As a layman, the reason why, and again, we have plenty of lawyers in this room. Too many? No, never too many. Never too many. The reason why we set laws is to set parameters. We set parameters for society. We set those parameters so that we have an orderly society. I think that, say that again? I'm sorry. I thought you said something. I have to tell you, your mask is very difficult to hear. Am I correct? Yeah, it's very difficult to hear with the mask. Well, we set parameters so we have an orderly society. I think if you look into social contract theory, we give up certain actions. Let's not call them freedoms or rights, but we give up certain actions for the common good so that we all live together within parameters of order. And that's all I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to set a parameter for order. And it has to be applied equally to everyone across the board. I understand the fears of some individuals regarding this. I don't see this as the bludgeon it could be. Okay, I do think that this is necessary to add a little more strength to the statute, and that's all. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Carol.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Corvese, I just have a question, page 2, lines 16 through 18. In no event shall subdivisions A2 through 5 of this section be construed to prevent lawful picketing or lawful demonstrations, and then you cut out the other language, relating to labor disputes. Why is it fair for labor disputes and not fair for persons who feel wronged and normal? Well, who took out including but not limited to? Why did you take that out? Well, you should take out that whole thing then. I mean, I don't see why you allow it for labor and not for other disputes. Right, but it said, but you changed the meaning of it because it said including but not limited to those relating. So it allowed for other demonstrations, not just labor.
Chairwoman, I can't hear Doc Carvase's responses.
Sorry, John. I thought I
That's
had it.
okay.
I thought I had it on.
You don't want to be cross-examined, that's why.
That's right. Thanks, John. Again, what I said to Chairwoman McAtee, those words were taken out so that the rest of the bill could be in effect. The portion about labor is already in the bill. That was already an exemption. If Chairwoman McAtee wants to take labor out, we can discuss it.
I just don't know why you would take out the words including but not limited to and leave labor in. Because now no, let me finish, Chairman Corvese. You are now saying it's okay for labor to do it, but it's not okay for people who want to demonstrate because of their civil rights being violated, or for whatever the reason might be. So now you're picking and choosing, and that, to me, is making a special category for labor disputes only.
That special category for labor disputes were already in there. If you want to remove it, I'll be happy to talk to you about it.
I beg to differ, because if you keep the language, including but not limited to, that does not mean that it's just labor. It means other demonstrations.
I know what it means, and you're saying that by keeping labor in, we're making a special exemption for labor.
Yeah.
That's correct.
She
That
said.
special exemption was already there. If you want to take it out, I'll be happy to discuss it with you.
Okay, any other questions of the sponsor by members? I think there was one, Representative Place, council just told me that you spotted a concern you had in another part of the bill.
Oh, no, it wasn't a concern. It wasn't necessarily needed to bring to the table, but just looking at the definition of roadways on line 11
Yep.
on page 2, the as written, at least when I look it up, it does not bring you to the definition of roadways. So I know the attorneys did check it out, and they said they found where the problem was, so.
Okay, great work, thanks. It's a typo, yeah. All right, now if the members don't mind, I'm going to go to the presentation by the sponsor for the next bill, and there's a reason for it, in addition to the fact that Representative Morales is waiting here. But of the witnesses that we have tonight, 7 on one bill and 9 on the other, there are 3 in common. So if we put both bills in play, then both people, when they get on the phone, they can testify to both bills. If you guys are all right with that, then that's what I'll do. The next bill I'll put in play now is House Bill 6298. It's sponsored by Representative Morales. It's an act related to state affairs and government. It prohibits a prohibition on the use of police robot technology. It prohibits any on-duty or off-duty law enforcement officer from utilizing any robot, comma, police robot dog, comma, or UAV, comma, whether armed or unarmed, within the scope of their employment. I've got a lot of educating to have from you, so hopefully you can tell me what UAV is, and I didn't know there were robot dogs.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, just for this opportunity to discuss and consider House Bill 6298. So in summary, this bill would prohibit local and state law enforcement agencies from investing in or using robot dog technology, which is defined as a machine that looks similar in appearance to a dog that operates either autonomously, by computers, or by an individual remotely, armed or unarmed, for the purpose of carrying out law enforcement duties. While I understand that the current legislation in front of you is very broad in language in regards to UAVs and other forms of robot-like technology, I want to be clear that I would be more than happy to submit an amendment just to be clear and really focus in on robot dog technology more so than anything else. So currently, no law enforcement agency in the state of Rhode Island has access or uses robot dog technology. Instead, this new dystopian-like technology was recently introduced in New York City and was quickly discontinued after just a few months, given the negative responses and fierce criticism it received from the low-income and working-class neighborhoods in Manhattan and Bronx, where these robot dogs were predominantly used. Several members of the New York City Council also responded to this by introducing an ordinance prohibiting their local law enforcement from owning or operating such robot dog technology from moving forward. Now, for brief context about this robot dog technology, they are generally four-legged, 70-pound automated robots equipped with cameras for the purpose of surveillance, along with the capacity to cause body harm, and they are developed by the Japanese-owned firm Boston Dynamics. And while these $90,000+ robots are intended as tools for surveillance and keeping the officers safe, there have not been any credible findings by law enforcement agencies in New York, Massachusetts, or Hawaii showing that they actually supported them in their duties. In other words, there is no actual evidence or justification demonstrating that these robot dogs are contributing to public safety. Instead, these robot dogs have created an array of concerns, from police budgeting, a lack of legislative oversight, the issues of AI bias, which would further inequality, the general precedent robot dogs would set, the militarization of local law enforcement, and so much more. I would recommend just quickly searching on your phone or your iPad tablet, robot dog, police, New York City, and it will give you a clear image of what it is that I am talking about. Now, to elaborate, the ACLU has been clear that an expansion of police robot dogs will put us on a path to fully autonomous machines with the ability to independently make decisions, which then raises the concern of inaccuracies or implicit biases from artificial intelligence, which can unintentionally or intentionally hurt marginalized communities based on their skin color, the neighborhoods they reside in, their age, or other factors that would essentially infringe on one's civil rights. All that said, by normalizing and accepting the use of robot police dogs, we run the risk of law enforcement misconduct being committed by autonomous machines that would unintentionally or intentionally reinforce racial biases and harm vulnerable communities. On a similar note, other civil rights groups have cited the introduction of these police robot dogs as a new and sophisticated way to further the militarization of local law enforcement, who in recent years have received access to subsidized military equipment such as rifles, helicopters, tear gas, armored trucks, and more. And unfortunately, these same civil rights groups have claimed that this would also be another method to further harass poor people and surveillance in terms of communities of color. After all, the arming of further weapons do not make our community safer. In fact, they do the opposite. When presented with a weapon that costs roughly the same amount of a high-end car, that being $90,000 in this case, police departments are going to have the incentive to put it to use, regardless of whether or not it was only intended for extreme or rare events. Now, in terms of the federal precedent set for the use of robot dog technology by law enforcement, the Obama administration previously placed limits on the types of equipment that police departments can obtain, and this actually included police robot dog models. But most recently, the Trump administration reversed them, thus making a bill like this so important. Overall, this bill is a preventative measure to ensure that our state does not have to experience the fear and uncertainty of further police militarization fueled by public tax dollars as opposed to investments that can be better spent on community-based initiatives to actually help promote public safety. After all, the development of technology moves a lot quicker than legislation does. In other words, Rhode Island could be the next home for policed robot dogs over the next 2 to 3 years if we do not act now. Therefore, we cannot and must not normalize the idea of equipping our police with untested robot technology that runs the risk of hurting people while further alienating our communities from their local law enforcement. Thank you.
Any questions of the sponsor? Second Vice Chair Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brett Morales, thank you for your presentation. Is your intent with this bill to eliminate offensive use technology in robot technology?
That is correct, yes. I would also want to place an amendment just making it very clear that this would be for armed robot technology.
Right, okay, that's great, because there's some robot technology that's out there now that is, you know, completely non-offensive, not even related to police work, but the way the bill's written, they wouldn't be able to use it. For instance, they would not be able to buy a mopping robot for the station, that kind of thing. So, a sub-A. Great, thank you.
Any other questions of the sponsor? Yes, Chairman Bennett.
Rep. Morales, excuse my back. You covered a lot on robot dogs. There's more in here than just robot dogs. You've got the drones, which are used sometimes in drug surveillance. You have the robot that goes in bomb situations, so the men themselves don't have, and the women themselves don't have to put themselves in harm's way. The mechanized camera is a big part of, you got an active shooter, and you can get in there with a robot that can take out that active shooter, and I say use it.
Yes, and that is, thank you so much for bringing that up, Chairman. That's why at the beginning of my testimony, I did make the provision that I would be more than happy to put in some of that sub-A language to, again, really just target the police robot dog. It's just that this is an unprecedented bill that went forward with legislative counsel, and we did not necessarily come to the same understanding of what the intention would be. Because again, my intention, just making sure police robot dogs do not make their way to Rhode Island.
But you can't eliminate the drones. You can't eliminate the drones and the cameras like this bill would do. So in your sub-A, I hope you take that out.
Exactly, that would be the intention.
Thank you very much.
Chairwoman Casamaro.
I just have one question. I think you just may have hit on it. Right now, this technology is not being used in Rhode Island?
No, the only places it is being used is, well, was being used in New York City before it was discontinued. There are some municipalities in Massachusetts and some municipalities in Hawaii.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the members of the sponsor? Okay, then we'll go to the first bill that we had tonight, sponsored by Chairman Corvasi. And the first caller, I won't call them out, just go to the first caller, just in case you haven't been able to contact them. Welcome. You're on the air. You're before the House Judiciary Committee, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My name is Sam Yamke. I'm a resident of Providence. And I wanted to just address the two bills. The bill trying to further criminalize policing, further criminalize highway protesters. And I wanted to, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of start with the bill that would add sort of further criminal statutes around protesting on highways. I wanted to first point out that Representative Norrie is a former law enforcement officer. Representative Corvasi has taken $2,100 from the police, as well as $5,700 from corrections officials as of last count. So I don't actually believe the two of you are unbiased actors in regards to this bill, and I would urge that you you take a step back from the consideration of this bill, because you are taking money from people who would stand to benefit from its passage. I wanted to sort of talk about how this was mentioned, that it does not define highway, roadway clearly. So as it currently stands, this could go far beyond the highway and could be used by police to arrest protesters en masse on local roadways as well. And I wanted to further echo the point that we already have in the same exact bill, Representative Norrie claimed that this is to prevent labor-related picketing from going into the street and violating the ordinances. But, the timing and the broad scope of this bill, I think, tell us otherwise. And I want to urge the representatives here that this is in response to a multitude of protests against police brutality here in Rhode Island, and that folks in the State House refuse to take steps to address that police brutality. So the quote was, "The reason why we make laws is to set parameters." The reason why people have been stretching those parameters in these protests is because our government, namely you all, have refused to respond to end the senseless and unending violence that we've seen by police here in Rhode Island. So I think that the concept of taking the streets and other public places in protest is crucial, and it's central to the entire history of America. It's critical to our democracy. So I think this is an authoritarian measure. It duplicates an already existing, criminal legal process. We already laid out how you can already be charged on this. Other representatives have laid this out, and I want to thank Representatives McEntee and Batista and Lombardi and others who oppose this bill. And I also wanted to just quickly note that I support David Morales' bill from utilizing robot technology, specifically robot dogs. And I want to further point out that artificial intelligence and surveillance has already been used in the state of Rhode Island. This was reported recently that the East Providence Police Department, the North Providence Police Department, and the Providence Police Department have all taken part in the Clearview AI database, which is an artificial intelligence database. And so they've made hundreds of searches into that database. So I just want to sort of clarify that these types of technologies that are hyper-invasive and that are oftentimes lead to racist outcomes because they don't properly they unfairly recognize black people. This is already being used in the state of Rhode Island. So I want to just sort of push that, if we were to make any amendments to the bill, be very clear that artificial intelligence is already being used and should not be used to further surveil people in our state. And like Representative Morales said, we need money for housing, for education, for health care, not for, the police to have even more toys to demonize people with. We need money for our health and well-being, and that's what's going to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Doc. Question?
I just have one question. The amounts that you mentioned regarding me, over how many years was that, please?
Over how many years? The database goes back. I want to say this is. You can find the exact numbers on NoCopMoneyRhodeIsland.org. NoCopMoneyRI, if you're interested. But these are all from your public filings with the state of Rhode Island, and this was updated as of, I want to say, the end of 2020. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're taking more money. Maybe you can correct the record if any of that isn't true. But
no, but you didn't answer the question. I asked over how many years is those numbers? I want to know how many years those numbers represent.
Do not know. I don't think it matters. I think you've taken money, period. I think that's relevant. Whether or not it was yesterday or whether it was last year, I would not be surprised if I went back and looked at the filings and saw that you've taken more. I think this is like flagrant conflict of interest, and the fact that the committee doesn't acknowledge it is troubling.
Any further questions of the witness? Thank you. Next witness, please.
I would not be surprised if I went back and looked.
Welcome to the House Committee on Judiciary. You're on the air. You're free to testify, and please give us your name.
Thank you very much, Chair, member of the committee. This is Stephen Brown from the ACLU of Rhode Island.
Hey, Stephen.
How are you?
Good.
Good. I'd like to testify in opposition to H 6269, the obstruction of traffic bill. There's already been a lot of our concerns have already been raised. I just want to make a few additional points of concern. As you've heard, subsection 4 of the bill already addresses obstruction. So to the extent that you have this broader definition being added. It clearly is designed to do something more than what already exists, and that's where we think serious First Amendment concerns arise. Representative Knight mentioned one aspect of it, the language about distracting and so forth, that could impact individuals who are protesting on the sides of roads. But there's another significant impact in terms of the expansion of this bill in talking about highways. Representative Place is correct. The statute defining highways is 31-123, and it's extremely expansive. So as worded, this bill would prohibit, for example, any sort of leafleting or panhandling on medians of roadways. As you may know, the ACLU has successfully challenged municipal ordinances that have tried to do that, whether intentional or not. This bill would also prohibit that sort of activity, and we think it would be clearly unconstitutional. I also want to briefly address the conversation surrounding the subsection D, lines 16 through 18 at the end of the bill, and the elimination of that phrase, including but not limited to. First, obstructing traffic has never been deemed, as far as I know, a First Amendment activity. So we don't think that's been used as a way to dismiss charges. What this last subsection was designed to do, as best as I can tell, is recognize, as you've talked about, disorderly conduct statute is a very broadly worded, a catch-all statute, and so this subsection is designed to, as a caution or sort of warning, to be careful when you're dealing with actual protected speech, not to try to pigeonhole it into something that's illegal. It doesn't make legal activity that is currently illegal, and as Representative McEntee pointed out, it doesn't make any sense to be exempting labor disputes only, because that itself raises very significant First Amendment issues. The language instead is just designed to make sure everybody realizes that a disorderly conduct statute cannot be used to infringe on First Amendment rights, but the subsection 4 already does address the obstruction issue. So because this new language would in fact expand what is prohibited, and we believe would end up covering lawful First Amendment activity, we oppose this bill as we opposed the original one, 5001, earlier in the session. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions of Steve Brown? Seeing none, thanks for your testimony, Steve. Next witness, please. Welcome to the House Committee on Judiciary. You're on the air. You're free to testify. Would you just give us your name?
Hi, my name is, Nathan Levin Aspenson.
And you want to testify on both bills, Nathan, right?
Yes, that's right. 6269 and 6298, right?
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I am testifying tonight against both of these bills. Since we have limited time, I will keep my objections to 6269 pretty simple. This is a bill that effectively criminalizes protest, something that would be unconstitutional according to the First Amendment. We are guaranteed by law the right to peaceable assembly, and that includes protest. And the authors of this bill are just going to have to deal with that fact. This is a constitutional right that cannot be infringed by law, and that is why I am testifying against this bill. Now, 6298, I was surprised to see, because it feels like every time I have to come into this testimony line with something about police spending, it is another ridiculous line item in a year where, again, we are in a budget crunch. And there are talks about cutting very vital social programs in housing and education. And we're talking about a bill to give the police robotic dogs. I thought it was a joke. So let's talk about these machines for a second. These are incredibly expensive and fragile pieces of equipment that are used to surveil and over-police the areas where they are deployed in. They provide no community benefit. They make no one safer or better off. They are expensive toys for overfunded police departments, and it is frankly laughable that they are even being considered in this chamber. And that is why I am testifying against 6298. I think that this committee should leave this bill. The most polite thing I can say is that this committee should not pass 6298. This bill is not a good time, not an appropriate thing to pass now or ever. Thank you, committee members, for your time.
Thank you, Nathan. Just for the record, Representative Morales' bill prohibits the use of robots and robot dogs to assist police. So, by virtue,
great.
if this were to pass, then it would prohibit that.
Then I believe I'm in writing as opposed to 6098. I would like to reverse that. I am now in favor of 6298 for all the reasons that I said earlier, and I take back the things that I said about the members of this chamber, except for the other times when they brought up police spending bills. I am in favor of barring robotic police dogs in the state of Rhode Island. How embarrassing for me that I got that wrong.
No problem. No problem. Representative Morales is happy I got him one more vote, so. Thank you very much.
All right. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
Next witness, please. Nina, you're on the air. You're free to testify. And you're going to testify on both bills, I assume.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nina Wolf-Landau. I'm here to testify as a resident of Providence. I'm testifying tonight in support of House Bill 6298 and against Bill 6269. So I'll start why I'm here tonight in support of 6298. That bill would prohibit any on-duty or off-duty law enforcement officer from utilizing any robot, police robot dog, or UAV, whether armed or unarmed, in the scope of their employment. As I'm sure you've heard from others tonight, this legislation is vital to preemptively get ahead of and prevent the use of police robots. As has been written extensively by the ACLU and others, there are a number of risks of police robots. One obvious risk is that these could eventually be armed, remote-controlled weapon devices, which are a problem in and of themselves. Second, we already know that policing is a violent and racist institution, and we are hearing calls from across the country, including right here in Rhode Island, to invest in education, healthcare, food, public transit, pedestrian and bike infrastructure, job training, and so much more, and to reduce and defund our police. So there's no reason to allow police to spend money on untested and expensive technology. So this ban is one small and really important step in heeding the needs and wants of Rhode Island residents. And in regards to 6269, which criminalizes as disorderly conduct the act of interfering with the lawful movement of traffic on any highway, this is part of a larger trend of unconstitutional and horrendous impingements on the First Amendment free speech rights of all people in this country. I'm an activist who cares about all residents of this state having access to basic rights and protections, including the right to protest. And it is abhorrent to me that during a deadly pandemic in which Black and Latinx Rhode Islanders are disproportionately impacted, and after a year of righteous uprisings in response to racist police violence, Rep. Corvese has chosen to waste everyone's time by attempting to criminalize protest and to criminalize people who attend protests to demand that their lives be respected and protected. This bill is not only horrible in its own right, but it is a gateway for more punitive and dangerous anti-protest laws. I was one of the activists present in August 2019 outside the Wyatt Detention Center when an employee ran over protesters in their vehicle. I was filming only a few feet away as that pickup truck accelerated into seated protesters. Yet this legislation seeks to criminalize protesters, not the people trying to run us over. I would like to close by saying I think this bill is absolutely horrendous, and I would encourage everyone on this committee to block this legislation from moving forward. It is very dangerous. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions of the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next witness, please. Tony Bob Craven, you're on the air before the House Judiciary Committee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and honorable members of the Judiciary Committee. My name is Tony Capezza, and I am the Legislative Director of the International Brotherhood of Police Officers. I'm testifying before you this evening in support of H. 6269. Although Rhode Island General Laws 1145-1 makes mention of obstructing a highway already, this bill further defines what obstructing is. Obstructing a highway is extremely dangerous for police officers, firefighters, the general public, and, yes, the protesters themselves. It is dangerous because traffic usually ends up coming to an abrupt stop when the roadway is suddenly blocked. This obstruction could also present a matter of a life or death situation. An example of this would be if a rescue is en route to the hospital on Route 95 and suddenly comes upon the roadway being completely blocked. Our rescue personnel extensively trained in taking alternate routes to hospitals. However, in a situation like this rescue could actually be between exits with no place to go. As we all been taught for many years, every second counts when you are treating a heart attack victim. And we are taking vital minutes away from this rescue at this time. Now, we've heard a lot about constitutional rights. Now, it's been quite a few years since I've taken constitutional law in college. However, if I remember correctly, the First Amendment doesn't give anybody the right to violate a statute that already is in effect. And this is, in effect, what is happening. We do have statutes that prohibit this. This bill would further strengthen it. We totally support it, and I would ask this committee to support it. I would like to say one more thing before I close, and it's got totally nothing to do with this bill. However, I heard this first witness testify, insinuating that because Chairman Corvese may have taken donations, that he's not capable of sitting on this panel. Well, I've known Doc Corvese for many, many years, and just as everybody down at the State House has known him, he's probably one of the most honorable men that sits in the chamber. And not as a lobbyist, not as a legislative director, but as a citizen of the state of Rhode Island, I object to that type of language being used against the chairman. With that, I'd answer any questions in reference to my testimony.
Any questions of Tony Capezza? Seeing none, Tony, thank you for your sentiments and thank you for your testimony. I agree with you. Dr. Corvese is a unbelievably upstanding member of this General Assembly, and I'm honored to have him serve in this committee. So, next witness is Randall Rose. Randall.
Yes, Chairman, who have written yes. Chairman Craven, thank you. I would like, my name is Randall Rose, and I'm speaking in favor of, against House Bill 6269 and in favor of 6298. And I was told I should speak on both of them.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, Chairman Corvese's Bill 6269 it claims to be about obstructing highways. That's not what it's about. It defines highways to include any kind of street, and it defines obstructing to include things that don't even necessarily block the highway or street. What it actually says is that anyone who distracts or delays a driver on a street is guilty of the crime disorderly conduct, given the way the bill redefines obstructing. Obviously, this bill is really unreasonable. It's not a crime to distract or delay a driver. The driver has a way to go past, and the bill even goes further than that. It allows people carrying out a lawful demonstration to be charged with a crime for making loud noise during a protest, or for obstructing a sidewalk or hallway or building entrance. Our current law in Rhode Island says that lawful demonstrations are protected against harassing charges of disorderly conduct. It says you can't charge people in a lawful demonstration with disorderly conduct if they're doing it as part of a lawful demonstration, because it's understood that during a demonstration people may get loud, they may briefly block a sidewalk or a building entrance. This is harmless conduct. It's not the kind of thing that deserves a criminal record. But Chairman Corvasi's bill removes the protection for lawful demonstrations and allows people to be charged with a crime, arrested, taken off the street, given a criminal record, simply for making quote-unquote loud and unreasonable noise or for obstructing a building entrance. It's just not reasonable. And as other people have pointed out, Chairman Corvasi has repeatedly introduced anti-protest bills. I understand he doesn't like a lot of the protests that go on, but that's no reason to give people a criminal record. And about the issue of blocking the highway, actually blocking an actual highway, I understand blocking the highway is a concern, and it's the only times when I've seen it done in Rhode Island have been in response to actual life and death issues where someone is actually killed by a police officer. And those are the kind of situations when emotions run high. I understand that people go out, and in some cases people have gone out and blocked the highway without actually causing any harm, but they have blocked highways in those situations. If you want to crack down and charge people with crimes for blocking the highway when they see innocent people being killed by police and no one being held accountable in the vast majority of police killings, I understand people may hope that that's going to stop the protests that block highways, but blocking the highway is actually a pretty mild response to that situation. It doesn't do any lasting harm, and if you manage to threaten people with crimes and stop them from blocking highways in that situation, they're going to react in some other way, which might be more harmful. I understand blocking the highway is annoying. People have concerns about it. But if you're just going to pass bills to criminalize blocking highways and you're not going to pass any laws that really improve police conduct, it's not going to resolve the situation. It's just going to mean that people who are upset about police killings are going to react in some other way that might be even less tolerable. So this is an ill-judged move, which is not going to remedy the situation. It's just going to increase social tensions, and it's better to allow protests that are harmless and not try to criminalize them and try to make deliberative improvements in the situation, pass laws that actually make the situation better instead of just trying to criminalize protests. So that's what I have to say on that bill. Going on to the other bill on police robots and drones. I'm in support of the bill to, again, police robots and drones. A lot of people find it really creepy for the police to be using drones, especially armed drones or armed robots, in the areas where they live. And there's never been any public consultation about whether we should have police drones or not. There's never been any public hearings that the police departments have gone through about whether to have robots and drones that are armed or robots and drones at all. This is the kind of thing that's very sensitive to people, and a lot of people do not want. Even if they're willing to trust police officers, human police officers patrolling their neighborhoods, they're not willing to trust robots and drones because, these things can have bugs. They don't always function as intended. The general public doesn't know what these robots and drones are doing or how they're programmed or what they're there for or what they're doing with their information. And there's a lot of understandable mistrust. And for that reason, I think it's time for a moratorium or a ban on police robots or drones until we have some kind of public consensus about what circumstances they're okay in. Right now, police are just free to acquire these things without going to their town council or city council, without having any kind of publicity or public hearings or disclosure. That's just not right. So it's time for a moratorium, and for that reason, I support the bill.
Thank you for your testimony, Randall. If there are no questions, we'll move on to the next witness. And while we're doing that, Madam Clerk, Sherry Roberts is on the webcam or whatever. So I think she wants their presence and maybe her votes if she wishes to weigh in.
Yes, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much. The three bills that we heard for consideration, Representative Roberts, I don't know if you had a chance to see them. They were involving a highway issue that was brought to, in reference to tickets of people backing up on the highway, to give some lenience to construction trucks. The second was the Senate version of Representative Cortovan's bill about parents not being investigated, presumptively by maybe DCYF, as that the disability, if those parents are disabled, that can't be the sole basis for an investigation by DCYF. And the last was Chairwoman Casamaro's bill, which says you got to be 18 years old before you can get a marriage license. So.
Yes on all three, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I don't think. Okay. And a nay on hold for further study, Representative Roberts, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, and we have another witness, but we also have Representative Felix, who comes to us remotely tonight, and she has a guest with her that is a very attractive... Oh, here she goes. What is her name, Leo?
Her name is Ayla, and she's watching Peppa Pig as we, go through this committee. It's my little sister.
Well, would she like her presence and votes recorded for the record? She's here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
She is here, so she wants her votes recorded, please.
Well, we'll have to send her
Or
a
no problem
citation of her performance today, and that she's an official member of the House Judiciary Committee in the state of Rhode Island. Great.
The
All right.
honorary member, youngest member. Thank you.
Exactly. All right, the next witness, I'm sorry, that concludes testimony on House Bill 6269 by Chairman Corvese, and we're on to finish the testimony on the last bill by Representative Morales, and I believe Andrew Poignant is the next witness? Okay. Andrew, you're on the air. You're before the House Judiciary Committee. Feel free to testify.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Andrew Poignant, and I'm a resident of Providence. I'm calling in support of Bill 6298, which will prohibit police in Rhode Island from using police robot dogs or UAVs. One individual RoboCop dog costs, on average, $75,000. And we all know that if any of the police departments within our state end up buying these prior to them being banned, it's going to be a whole lot harder for us to then retroactively ban these. Technology often moves faster than what legislation does, and in this case, I hope that our Rhode Island General Assembly moves faster than the technology being deployed here in Rhode Island and bans these RoboCop dogs. RoboCop dogs would increase the militarization and surveillance of our police departments that our police departments use. The safest communities aren't those that have the most police or those that have the most surveillance, but rather those with the most resources. We would much rather, in order for our communities to be safe, we would much rather see our money go towards the needs of our communities, including housing, better schools, water, food, and making sure people are able to have their needs met. I really hope that this committee moves forward this legislation and passes it on the General House floor. I also want to just quickly show my opposition to Bill 6269. Oftentimes, historically, we think of movements as how great they are and how important they are to our country's history and shaping our country. And so many movements, including the civil rights movements and Martin Luther King, have stopped traffic in streets and bridges. And anyone who's ever used MLK's name or quotes in the past should oppose this bill. So I hope that you support Bill 6298 and oppose 6269. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Andrew. Next witness. Enrique?
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Good. You're on the air. You're before the House Judiciary Committee to testify on Representative Morales' bill, 6298, and you're free to begin your testimony.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Enrique Sanchez. I am here representing the BLM IPAC and Providence Democratic Socialists of America and other organizations that care about preventing more excessive militarized policing. Beforehand, I would like to thank the committee for hearing us out, and I would like to give out a special thanks to our Representative David Morales for introducing this very important bill that would prevent more militarized policing in our streets and our communities across the city in Providence and across the state. We have to do everything possible to prevent more excessive policing that only hurts our BIPOC communities, our most marginalized, our most forgotten communities across Providence and across Rhode Island. I thank the Representative Morales for introducing this bill before police departments across the city and across the state start bringing or start investing in these robo police dogs or whatever you want to call them, and things get out of hand for our most vulnerable throughout the community and throughout the state. There is a calculation of about $74,000 to $75,000 that is the cost of each of these RoboCop police dogs, and this has been proven because they have been used across the states, across the region and across the country. Just recently, there was a story in the NYPD that a RoboCop dog was used to chase down a person, and this person, of course, a BIPOC person of color, was hurt and victimized. Again, these excessive militarized police dogs are only a waste of resources and funds for our communities. That we need more education funds, we need more investment in our resources for health care and different opportunities for our young people to prevent more of these so-called reasons to prevent and bring in more police excessive spending to our city and to our state. So we need to call this out before it gets out of hand, and I would like to thank the representative for doing everything possible to stop this before this becomes a reality in our city and across the state. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next witness. Kirk, you're on the air live before the House Judiciary Committee. Please proceed with your testimony.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. I am testifying in support of H6298, the act that would prohibit any on-duty or off-duty law enforcement officer from utilizing any kind of robot or police robot dog. So I want to I'll try to be brief here. So I was reading a story this morning from the NPR where this, quote, creepy robot dog loses job with the New York Police Department. And so, I was looking through this article, and I guess the New York City Police canceled a $94,000 contract with the robot's maker, following backlash tied to concerns of police militarization and abuses of force. And then in there, the mayor, Bill de Blasio, is quoted as, he's glad that this was put down because it's creepy, alienating, and sends the wrong message to New Yorkers. And it's kind of thinking about that. I was like, Bill de Blasio is right, which is something that I don't ever say or really often think as someone who follows New York City politics occasionally. And since obviously Providence is a better city than New York City, and Rhode Island clearly is a better state than New York, and I don't think anyone sitting in this room would disagree with me on those points, I don't see any reason why police in Rhode Island should even entertain an idea like this. And so I think this bill would create the barrier that's necessary to foreclose any possibility of something like this ever happening. Because I think, right now, public trust with the police it really is at an all-time low, considering sort of nationally what's happened. And so adding a robot police dog, which is just so weird to even say, it's just kind of dystopian, and it's not a road that our state really should even go down at all. Like we don't need to make the same mistakes that the state of New York and New York City made, because we can pass this bill and it'll never even be a problem. So those are kind of my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next witness, please. Okay. Hannah, you're on the air with the House Judiciary Committee. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee, for your time this evening. My name is Hannah Stern, testifying on behalf of the ACLU of Rhode Island in support of this legislation. As you've heard tonight from the other testimonies, concerns about the utilization of these robots by police are really not theoretical at all. And as you've also heard, just because of the capacity to be used as tools of surveillance with very limited public transparency, almost no regulation, these technologies could really just exacerbate issues of over-policing that we already see in communities of color, low-income communities, and other marginalized communities. And I'll also just say that recently, I think it's become very clear that with the extraordinary rate that technology is advancing, our policy and legislative agendas just often don't match that pace or appropriately reconcile the real capabilities and impact of that technology. So we think proactively addressing an issue of both policing and technology is just pragmatic. We think it's a great way to ensure that communities are not impacted by the future discriminatory implementation of something like police robotics, just by barring the testing of these technologies in the first place. So we urge passage of this bill. Thank you very much for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Hannah? Seeing none, thank you, Hannah. And we're on to our last witness. Tal, you're on the air before the House Judiciary Committee. Tal, you're on the air before the House Judiciary Committee. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you so much. My name is Paul Frieden, and I work for Demand Progress, a nationwide organization with hundreds of thousands of affiliated activists. And for years, we have been advocating against the introduction of police technologies such as drones, UAVs, and robots. Drones and police robots do not make our communities safer. Over the past 10 years, police have added a large slew of technology to their holsters, including facial recognition, drones, and now police robots. These technologies have never been shown to make any community safer. Instead, police departments spend millions of dollars on shiny toys that they use to surveil community members. Surveillance is a privacy and civil liberties concern for all of us. But in addition to the surveillance concerns that come along with drones, UAVs, robots, and facial recognition, we should be critically aware to the way that these tools reinforce racist policies in policing. For example, the New York Times has documented at least 3 instances of wrongful conviction of black people due to the use of facial recognition software. It is imperative that the state of Rhode Island ban the use of drones, UAVs, police robots, and I would include, in addition to those technologies, facial recognition software, because this software and these police tools are only used to surveil our communities, infringe on privacy rights, and have never been shown to make communities safer. Instead of investing millions of dollars in municipal and state police funds on shiny new technology, we should be investing our taxpayer dollars into services that help our communities and address the root causes of violence within them. Thank you so much. I hope the committee moves to ban drones, police robots, and in addition to that, facial recognition software in Rhode Island's police departments.
Thank you very much for your testimony. That concludes testimony on House Bill 6298, and it concludes our business for tonight. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.